Today is the big day when players must accept or reject the qualifying offers made to them by their teams. And one of the MLB's biggest focuses is our very own Zac Gallen.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Daynen Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Today's a big day, November 18th, 2025. This is the day that all qualifying offers that have been made need to be accepted or rejected. This is also the day that the 40-man roster needs to be finalized in order to protect any players from the Rule 5 draft. We're going to be talking about both of those today, and we're also going to be talking about some trade speculation and some trade options that we have that some do, some don't involve Katel Marte, because we've been talking a lot about Katel Marte and a potential trade with him. And I want to talk about some, I think, more likely options and more likely scenarios that we'll see unfold in this offseason. So let's get started talking about Zac Gallen. So the Zac Gallen decision. So as I said, he has today to make a decision on whether or not he's going to accept the qualified offer that was made to him by the Diamondbacks or not. Now, as a little refresher, qualified offer is essentially your player is going into free agency, and as I understand it, you can make this offer to any player, but you only do it to certain players, and I'll get why. I'll explain why here in a second. But the offer that you make is a preset. It's a predetermined offer made by the MLB. It's basically the top 125 paid players. It's the median, or it's the mean of those 125 highest paid players. And this year that came out to a little over 22 million. So teams had the option to extend a qualifying offer to a player who's going into free agency for $22 million for one more season. After that, they're free agents, and there's nothing that the team can really do about it. And you would make that offer to a player who was worth more than $22 million, because if they're worth less than that, then they would obviously accept it, and you're overpaying for a player that for a year that is going to be making a lot of money and isn't probably worth it. But if the player is worth much more than that, then obviously they're not going to accept it. And if you make a qualifying offer, you get a compensation pick in the draft, compensation draft pick. I understand as well. I wasn't aware of this, that they do have to make us. It does have to be for a certain amount. And if it's not that, then I think it's from a first round pick to a second round pick or something like that. And so that's also an element of it as well. But if Zac Gallen does decide not to accept the offer, the Diamondbacks will get a draft pick in compensation for that. So the big question is, does Zac Gallen accept the offer or does he decline it? So the offer was made to Zac Gallen, which we all knew it was going to happen. And it's almost certain that he is going to reject that offer. That's what we're expecting, is that he's going to say no. It would be a very big surprise if he accepts the offer and comes back for another season. However, he was expected to be worth a lot of money coming into free agency. However, his 2025 season wasn't the best season. He did end the season pretty well, but everything, the first half of the season plus some, he was not looking very good. And so that has understandably brought his worth down considerably. And so much so that he may consider taking the qualified offer and in hopes that his 2026 season will be much better, and then he can re-enter free agency on a much higher note and be worth a lot more money. That would be the reasoning behind accepting the offer. He could also, that being said, he could also decline and then sign a deal with an opt-out in that deal, so that if he does end up performing much better than expected, he could opt out and rejoin free agency. So there are a couple different routes he could take. Now, the Diamondbacks seemingly made their decision already, as in to make that qualifying offer. They've made the decision, but there is another decision in the future as well, and that is he rejects the offer, which he's most likely to, but then we still could sign him. He's not off the table at that point. We would just have to sign him to a new contract. And according to Tim Kelly from Bleacher Report, he predicts that Zac Gallen will sign a 2-year, $45 million deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks, which that would equal slightly more than the 22 million qualifying offer. That would be, I mean, if you just do 45 divided by 2, it's an odd number, so that's hard, but that's 22.5 million. So it's about the same, really. But it would be a 2-year contract, and it would give Gallen a little bit of a cushion to kind of get his stuff back and potentially go into free agency 2 years later. But on a slightly cozier deal than just a 1-year qualified offer deal. Now, I don't know how much, or one, I don't know how likely this deal is to happen, and I also don't know how much I like the deal. Now, I like Zac Gallen. I believe he's going to. I believe he's still got a lot of good years ahead of him. He's young. Pitchers have off years, and Zac Gallen had a heavy load to bear this season, just mentally, and with the Diamondbacks, and with the injuries that plagued the D-backs pitching all season, and a brand new pitching staff that I imagine had some growing pains and had some hard times kind of getting used to each other, which I believe is the case, because as we saw the season go on, the pitching did improve and got better and better. Specifically, Zac Gallen got better and better, and he even said later on, he praised the pitching coach's performance as the year went on. So I believe that if he does leave, he may struggle initially and then come back into his own, and by the end of 2026, on whatever team he ends up on, he'll look more like his ace self. But if he were to stay on the Diamondbacks, I imagine he would start the season pretty well and continue to perform as well as he did in the tail end of 2025. That being said, here's the reason why I think maybe this isn't a great idea, is because we may be able to get relatively similar results for less money. Because again, the Diamondbacks are planning on cutting costs in payroll this upcoming season, and estimates put the Diamondbacks payroll at we have anywhere from $25 to $50 million this upcoming season. And if we were to sign Zac Gallen, that would be $22, $23 million of that, which is best case scenario about half. So do we want to sign Zac Gallen to that big of a deal? I mean, maybe. I probably would rather try and re-sign Merrill Kelly for less, because one, I think he's probably worth less. That's a mean way to say it, but we could probably get him on a 1 or 2 year deal for less than $45 million, and he would probably accept a lower deal than he's worth. Being from here, he is a fan of Arizona sports. He's been spotted at multiple Suns games over the last few weeks, and he seemingly wants to end his career in Arizona. So I think that would help a lot. Gallen sounds like he would love to come back to Arizona as well, but I think he has a lot more career ahead of him that he has to think about. And I think that also being a Scott Boras client, he's going to be playing kind of hard to get, which he should. And I hope the best for him, and I hope he makes as much money as possible. Unless he does come here, then I hope he cuts us a really good deal. So, but again, so that's probably where I would land on Zac Gallen is if he were to accept the qualifying offer, I think that would be kind of cool to see. And if we were to sign him to a 2-year deal like this, that would be cool to see. I would probably still be I would be happy to see him stay, but I see the benefit of him not staying. And I think that may be the better way to go. So that's where I land on Zac Gallen. Would be happy if he stayed. Would be happy if we got some additional pieces of the roster put in for that price. But but having him come back would be one less pitcher that we need to worry about. So it could go either way. I would love to hear what you think, though. Please let me know in the comments. Would you like to see Zac Gallen stay on the Diamondbacks, even if it did cost them a little bit more than they're probably hoping? Or do you think we get something better in his place? Let me know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, go to the YouTube video of this podcast and let me know your thoughts. And I will probably read them on tomorrow's episode. All right, we're going to talk now about the Rule 5 draft, what it is, what's happening, when it's happening, and what the Diamondbacks are doing to prepare for it. But before we get to that, we're going to take a short break. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we're back, and I wanted to say once again, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every single day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I really do appreciate it. So the Rule 5 draft, something I had always kind of known about, but didn't really understand until probably more recently. I mean, probably until I took on the hosting the podcast, and it's something that happens every year. And basically, to summarize, the team has their 40-man roster, which actually I'll take a step back. I explained this to my wife beforehand, and I think she understood it, which means I think I explained it fairly well. She might have been faking the understanding, but I'll share with you what I shared with her in case you are unfamiliar with some of this. Every baseball team has a 26-man active roster, and that is who shows up, who's in the dugout, who's playing, who you can put in the game at any point, right? Beyond that, there's a 40-man roster where you have the 26 who are in the majors on the team, and then you have the additional 14 players who, right? That's mathing correctly. 14 players, and they are typically on the AAA team, and they can be called up at a moment's notice and fill a spot in the 26 active man roster. And likewise, the members of the 26 roster can be sent down to AAA, and they remain on the 40-man roster, and you can very easily switch them back and forth. So that's why we often will see players get called up and then sent back down, and then called up and sent back down as the year goes on. Being on the 40-man roster comes with a lot of benefits. So, like if you're a player and you make the 40-man roster, your pay, your benefits go up, all these different things. You want to be on the 40-man roster if you are a baseball player. So there's a lot of reasons to be on there, not just because there's a good chance you'll play in the majors. So that's one big thing for a lot of players. And beyond the 40-man roster, you have all your minor league players. And of those minor league players, if you have 4 years of active playing time, so you've been playing in the minors for 4 years and you were drafted after the age of 18, then you qualify for the Rule 5 draft. And then if you were 18 or younger when you were drafted, it's 5 seasons. So 4 or 5 seasons. You qualify for the Rule 5 draft. And if you are not on that 40-man roster by November 18th, today, then you are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and you can be picked off by any team who wants you. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind here. One, if a team picks you off of your home team, they owe that home team $100,000 as like a compensation. And you have to be placed on the new team's active 26-man roster, and you have to stay there for the entirety of the season. The only exception is if you go on the injured list or something like that. But you have to stay on the active roster all season. And if you don't, you're placed on waivers. And if you clear the waivers, then you are sent back to your original team. And that actually happened to the Diamondbacks a handful of years ago. I had the figure right here. I had the player right here, but I don't have him anymore. So if I find him, I'll bring that up. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this because recently the Diamondbacks removed a player from their 40-man roster, and that was Christian Montes de Oca, who has been, according to the transaction log, outrighted to AAA Reno. And basically that puts him in a spot where he could be picked up by any other team. The Rule 5 draft happens in December at the winter meetings. This year it's December 10th, and that's when everything will go down. And if the Rockies want to sign De Oca, they can do that. And they'll give the Diamondbacks $100,000, and De Oca will be a Rocky, and he will be on the major league team, and he will have to be on the major league team for the entirety of the season, or else he risks just getting sent right back. Now, it feels like this would happen kind of a lot, but that caveat of a player has to be on the active roster, I think, plays a big part in this, because if there are players that you're kind of worried about losing, and for example, the Diamondbacks have a handful of players that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and that includes Bratt, that includes Cole, a handful of players that we got from Cole Drake and Mitch Bratt, who we got from the Merrill Kelly trade. Both of them are eligible for the Rule 5 draft and would in theory be ready to play next season, and so would be attractive players to pick off. So in order to keep them safe, even though they are not on the 26-man roster and likely won't be anytime soon, the Diamondbacks have placed them on the 40-man roster in order to keep them safe and protect them from being snatched. That's a weird way to put it, but you get what I'm saying. Now, again, I was curious to see, like, is this something that happens pretty regularly? And last year there were quite a few. There's also a minor league Rule 5 draft as well, where you see quite a bit more action. But last year the Diamondbacks did not lose any players in the Rule 5 draft. They did pick one up, catcher, and I don't remember his name, and I didn't write it down. So that kind of shows you the impact that had. However, there have been a handful of pretty big names and players that did change teams because of the Rule 5 draft. So definitely don't sleep on it. We will cover any big signings that we see, but that again won't happen until December 10th. So we have a little bit, a couple of weeks before that happens. All right. So that's the Rule 5 draft. We currently have, let me see, I believe it is 36 people on our 40-man roster. And the reason we would leave spots open is so that, one, we can sign people as we go. So if we sign somebody tomorrow, or if, for example, if Zac Gallen accepts the qualified offer, then okay, now we have one less spot on our roster. So there's strategy to leaving some spots open. So I'm interested to see what Mike Hazen has planned for that and how that's all going to turn out. So again, we're going to be covering that and more. So if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do that. And we're going to take another short break, and then we're going to talk about some potential trades that could happen, some that I feel are a bit more likely and realistic than a Katel Marte trade. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we're back, and we're talking about trades. Now, the reason why we've been talking a lot about about Katel Marte getting traded is because he's one of the only real valuable assets that the Diamondbacks have that they could trade. I don't know that it's likely that he'll be traded, but if the Diamondbacks wanted to fill the roster with a bunch of players without giving up too many, Marte's kind of the one to do it. Because aside from him, we have prospects, which I think are going to play a big part in who gets traded. And we also have a handful, we have some depth as far as position players goes. We have a lot of infielders. And so it kind of makes sense to be like, well, we have a top prospect who's an infielder, but we need pitchers. So let's trade our infielder top prospect for a pitching top prospect to a team that has a lot of pitching depth, but not a lot of infielder depth. So that's kind of the thought process. And Mike Hazen has said recently that he's fairly confident that a deal like that is going to be made in the future. So I'm excited to see what that is, because I would hate to give up a bunch of top prospects for a bunch of MLB pitchers who are maybe a bit older and just end up not doing very well, which the Diamondbacks are no stranger to signing really good pitchers that are no longer really good. So that would be a real shame. But if we were to sign or to trade a prospect for a prospect, maybe like an MLB ready prospect for an MLB ready prospect, then one, it doesn't hurt quite as bad because we don't know if our prospect is actually going to be good either. And so if theirs ends up not being good, then well, okay. But they're still young, they're developing, and there's room to grow. And so if there's things that need to be worked out, it's a little bit more in our control than an older pitcher who just loses their stuff and there's not really anything we can do. So that's kind of the route I'm hoping to see. But outside of Katel Marte, our biggest player that I think is tradable and is desired is Jordan Lawler. And I'm apparently allergic to Jordan Lawler, so let's get rid of him, right? But no, anyway, there was an article, and I read this article, and I actually was fairly impressed with this one. Usually when an article comes out saying like, hey, we should get this Diamondbacks player, they go, we want Katel Marte, and we'll trade Stephen Kwan for him. And it's like, that's not a good trade at all. Like they don't understand the value, and they overvalue their players, undervalue ours. This one, I feel like actually did a fairly good job at balancing the value. And obviously, I'm biased towards the Diamondbacks players, so I'm taking that into account. But excuse me, again, I guess I'm allergic to Jordan Lawler, but this comes from Covering the Corner, which is an SB Nation website from Cleveland, a Cleveland Guardians community. And this article by Quincy Wheeler is titled Diamondbacks Guardians, Let's Make a Trade. So Let's take a look. One trade that they offer is Jordan Lawler for Parker Messick. I hope I'm saying that right. But Jordan Lawler, obviously we know who Jordan Lawler is. Second baseman, third baseman, shortstop sometimes, developing outfielder, for left-handed pitcher Parker Messick. Now, Messick is a starting pitcher, and in 2025 pitched 7 games and had a 3-1 record with 2.72 ERA. Not bad. 40 innings, just nearly 40 innings, 38 strikeouts. Pretty good looking stuff, to be honest. Now, he's very young and unproven, I guess you could say. But so is Jordan Lawler. He had if you look at the season as a whole, it's scary. But as this article points out, it's like, honestly, he's pretty good, though. Like, he's got a high ceiling. And to trade Messick for Lawler feels like a pretty even trade. So if we were to do that, then we would get a left-handed starting pitcher, very young. We would have him for a very long time, and could be. I mean, he kind of feels like Mariners Zac Gallen to me. Kind of feels like somebody who is like a young Zac Gallen. But he was a second-round draft pick by the Guardians. And, yeah, honestly, pretty all right trade offer there. It's funny, though, because he even says, like, there's no way anybody, like, none of our players would like this trade, or none of our fans would like this trade, but it would be probably a good one. And it's like, yeah, that's about right. That's how you know it's a good trade, is when both sides are like, are we sure? But if both sides are thinking that, it's a good sign. Another trade that is suggested in this article, trade Ryan Waldschmidt and Daniel Egan for Tanner Bibby. So Waldschmidt is our number one prospect at the moment. He is outfielder, and he's developing very well. We're excited to see what he can do. However, he is still in Double-A, so he's still got a ways to go. And we have a lot of position players. We're not lacking position players right now. Outfielders, maybe. So that's one little thing. And then Daniel Egan, also a Double-A pitcher, right-handed. He is... It feels a little counterintuitive to trade him because of that. But Tanner Bibby is a 26-year-old. He'd be 27 this upcoming season. 27-year-old pitcher. He has 3 seasons with the Guardians, and he has a career 3.61 ERA and started 31 games over each of the last 2 seasons. The issue with Bibby that I'm a little bit worried about is his rookie season. He had a 2.98 ERA, and then every year it's gotten worse. This last year being 4.24, which 4.24 ERA, if all of our pitchers had that, we'd be smooth sailing. So it's not like that would be a good example of let's trade some prospects for somebody who we can confidently put in our rotation and would get the job done, might impress us, might surprise us and be amazing. Again, a very young pitcher. He won't be a free agent until 2030, so we'd have him for a while, but also could kind of be a dud. But we're trading for prospects who also could kind of be duds. So you never know. And then the third trade that we have here, they say Katel Marte for Travis Bazzana, Joey Cantillo, and Josh Hartle. I think this is the exact trade scenario that we covered a few episodes ago. I know Bazzana and Cantillo were on there. I don't think Josh Hartle was, though, actually, now that I think about it. And let's see, Josh Hartle. Josh Hartle is a young upcoming pitcher, 22 years old, and he has on Double-A, he had a 4.5 ERA, but had just he only pitched 10 innings. So there we go. So starting pitcher in high A had a 2.35 ERA in 22 games. Not bad. I think there would need to be a little bit something more to sweeten the deal there. I don't know if adding another player would do it or what, but I think that'd be on the right path. I think if the Guardians were to approach Mike Hazen with that sort of trade, he'd be like, okay, listen, you're close. This is going to be a no, but think about it, see what else you could offer. And if there's anything else you're willing to throw in, give me a call, let me know. And I could see this being close as far as a Katel Marte trade. But that would be rough. Like that would be kind of a, that would be one that fans would definitely be upset at, but potentially very happy if it worked out. Like that's what trades, that's what this whole game is. This offseason trading thing is just a lot of gambling, and we don't have a very good history of gambling on pitchers, unfortunately, but we do have a few bright spots with Kelly and Gallen, and then our developing pitchers of Nelson and Fott still is a work in progress, but I'm optimistic for Fott. So, we'll see. And hopefully Corbin Burns proves to be as good as ever when he comes back. So if we can sign a couple more good pitchers or trade for a few more pitchers, honestly, that's really what we're going to have to do. If we're able to use our prospects where we have a lot of depth, and maybe that means Jordan Lawler. We'll see. I'd like to keep him, but I'd like to keep everybody, to be honest. I wish we could just sign people and not trade for anybody. That would be wonderful. But I think we're going to see a good number of our prospects leaving in favor of pitchers, because that's only starting pitchers. We haven't even talked about the bullpen yet. So there's a lot to talk about there, and we're going to talk about it and more over the next handful of days and weeks. So be sure to follow us on YouTube and X and Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the places at Locked On Diamondbacks. We're on YouTube, as I said, as well as every other place you get podcasts. If you want to see more of me, you can find more of my YouTube channels and my projects at my website, slackshack.tv. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every single day, and I will see you tomorrow.